What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to ICNV Drives Edition. Today, well, let's just jump into it like this. I just left having lunch with a couple friends. One that works at a car dealership. Actually, they're both kind of affiliated with car dealerships in some way, shape, or form. But one who works at a car dealership, used to be a Chevy dealership, now he works at a Ford dealership. And another who works at a used car store. But it's more like higher end used car. I'm gonna say higher end, but more luxury used car type of deal. So, but we was having this conversation today about the car market and how just crazy it is right now with used cars and the price of the vehicles. So I feel like it's a conversation I should share with you guys. So let's jump into it. Let's talk about how is the used car market or the car market in general affecting things and what we predict or kind of what we think is going to happen for the future. All right, let's get into this. But before we get too in depth, I want to thank you guys for stopping, hitting the button. This is your first time to the channel. Please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. We have interesting conversations all the time. For those of you that don't know, and a lot of you may not, the whole purpose of this channel, or originally how it came about, was I have several friends that was in the car business, plus that I grew up with since I was knee-high to a grasshopper, as they like to say, that all we do was talk about cars, the industry, and sports. So it was kind of originated, supposed to be a conversation or a channel built around that. But the pandemic hit, things kind of shifted. We didn't really see each other as much. Some people picked up weight. I ain't gonna say no names, but you know who you are. And at this point, some people don't like how they sound. Some people don't like how they look on camera. So it hasn't really been the full-blown experience that we wanted it to be, or I intended for it to be, but it's turned into something more I can say is still entertaining, and I hope you guys enjoy the conversations that we have. So, getting into this topic about the used car market, I have a friend that used to work at the Chevy store, and it's very interesting because some point in time in 2021, don't know the exact date, so I don't want to give you false information, but ultimately, he left a Chevy store to go work at a Ford store. He sold 5 brand new Corvettes, and their dealership, the Chevy that he worked for, didn't really get tremendous amount of allotments or allocations, should I say. But he sold 5 brand new Corvettes, and then since he's been at the Ford store, he sold 7. So it kind of sparked an interesting conversation about what's going on with the used car market. And then my other friend works in the used car market, so a lot of times I get their viewpoint, especially when I'm looking for vehicles. And part of the reason why I got with the guys, just so you understand, was 1, we haven't seen each other in a while, and 2, I'm looking for another vehicle to play with to bring to the channel, which I'll discuss that with you guys later. So, diving back into this conversation, what we've actually come about this conversation, or from this lunch, I guess you could say date, hangout, however you want to call it, is everybody seems to believe the car industry, if you knew it, is gone. There are some videos out there, some sources. I don't want to give or misquote anyone, so I'm sure if you look around, you can find them just by searching the topic of used car market or the car sales industries, things of that nature right now, and look for videos that pop up, I say recently, as early as March of 2022 to April of 2022. And what you're starting to see is, for instance, Toyota has canceled, I believe, 10,000 vehicles, just won't make them, say part shortages. There's a couple articles out where people in the car magazine industry have spoken with people at car manufacturers. And what they've actually sat there and said is the pandemic has taught them some valuable information, and we will probably never see the same auto industry as we saw before, because what they've learned is if they make less cars, they can maximize more profit. Whereas it used to be, the best way I can explain to you is, if you produce a lot, it was more of the bulk theory. I would rather sell 10,000 units and make, say, $1 million than sell 1,000 units for a higher price and only make $1 million. Well, what they start to realize now is it's actually cheaper and more cost efficient for them to sell a smaller amount of units and maximize the profit margin. Because one of the discussions that they were having in this article was, since COVID hit, they really haven't had to offer rebates. So if you jump back into like the C8 conversation, but I'm not going to gravitate to that with this because I can point out several other vehicles. But if you jump into the C8 conversation, it's a prime example basically by sitting there saying that the Corvette C7 came out in 2014. By the end of the year, they were offering $6,000 rebate. Not at the end of the physical year, but by the end of the 2014 model year, they were offering a $6,000 rebate on a Chevy Corvette. If you look at 2019, the last year they ran the C7 Corvette, they offered up to $9,000 off the C7 Corvette. So with that being said, if you look at today's production, now back then they were looking to produce anywhere between 33 to 40,000 Corvettes a year. Since the pandemic has hit, GM hasn't been able to produce 26,000 Corvettes. And with that low number of Corvettes coming out, yes, the industry and the marketplace is going crazy. But the one thing that hasn't happened is General Motors hasn't had to offer any rebates or discounts on a C8 Corvette. So what are they learning from this? Yes, they keep putting out information saying, hey, we want to get back to our normal cycle of production. But from an article that I read and from a conversation from I can't remember, car driver, somebody, it was a channel I was watching, and the conversation that was had was that ultimately they don't really want to get back to basic Corvette production. They want to keep the numbers low, but so they can continue to maximize profit. So I think there's two different ideals going on in the same company, whereas the engineers will want to build more Corvettes because they want their product out there, whereas the infrastructure doesn't want to push out a mass amount of vehicles to where they flood the market to now they got to give up $6,000 in rebates. So that's something you got to think about. Now, talking to my friend that works at the Ford dealership, what he actually told me, or what he shed some light on, is that it's not just Corvettes, it's pretty much across the board. So what he was saying was that he had a customer come in that wanted to buy a Ford Transit, and the Ford Transits are just as hard to get, which people may not understand. It's like a Ford Transit is a cargo van, and so they were selling the cargo van for $30,000 over MSRP. Think about that. $30,000 over MSRP, and they had somebody in trying to buy it who didn't even blink an eye. I think he was trying to buy it for $25,000. It was just a little bit less, but he didn't even blink an eye. He was trying to get it done. They couldn't get him financed. Somebody else came in or called in looking for the Ford Transit, offered them $10,000 more than the person they were struggling to get financed for the vehicle, came in, dropped the check for $60,000 and bought the car. So he outbidded the person they was like, before the guy could even get out the building, because they was like, we'll work on the deal. The van was sold to somebody else who offered $10,000 more and paid the bulk of it in cash. So that's just telling you, it's not just the Corvette industry that's crazy. It's just not the sports car market that's crazy. Vehicles are up all across the board. I've seen Toyota RAV4s going for 15, 20 grand over MSRP. I've seen Jeep Trackhawks going for 40 grand over MSRP. I've seen Hellcat Demons going for 50 grand over MSRP. Which brings me back to the whole used car side of this, because my friend that works in the used car industry was sitting there saying it's kind of crazy, because what you got to look at is a lot of people approach this whole over MSRP pricing like the used car company is the person that actually owned the car brand new. Because my friend, the luxury dealer, they've had 5 Corvette C8s. And what he was saying is, to get the cars on the wholesale side of it, or, at the auction, or just buying it for another person, they are offering customers or people anywhere between $18,000 to $25,000 over for this car. At least the past year they were doing that. And so when they start selling these cars for $35,000 over MSRP, a lot of people call in. I'm not going to say a lot of people. A lot of Chevy purists call in and complain that they're trying to get $30,000 over MSRP. And what you have to understand is they're really not trying to get $30,000 over MSRP. They're just trying to get maybe 10 grand, 15 grand over what they paid for the car, which they feel like is just a profit at this point in time. And I know a lot of people don't believe that that type of markup is selling, because you're starting to see some C8 sit on lots. But truth be told, my friend that works at the Ford dealership who sold 7 Corvette C8s said, as crazy as it may seem, we know dealerships have line or a list of people waiting to buy a brand new C8. They have a list of people waiting to buy a used C8 because they keep getting them. Especially one that they can possibly, if they can price it somewhere around $25,000 over the original MSRP of the car. Now, he's been upfront with me and said that's been rare. They usually get them somewhere where they can charge maybe $25,000 to $35,000 above the original MSRP of the car. And he was like, and people will come by that in a heartbeat. He said, I got like 3 guys waiting right now for $30,000 over MSRP. So the car industry, especially on the used car market right now, is kind of crazy. And the reason why it's crazy is because you can't get a new car. So the used cars are not only retaining value, they're actually selling for a premium, because it's hard to find good quality used cars for sale. Now, when you think about it from that point of view, it's hard to believe that instantaneously, like a lot of people say, and like I said, this is going to be controversial, not because it's really a controversial topic or a saying, but it's because it's not what people want to hear. The change in the economy or the car industry is not going to happen as quick as people believe. The auto industry that you once knew will never be the same. I don't see car sales or the auto industry or the sales for cars going back to what it once was. So you have to embrace that. And if you're not willing to embrace that or understand that, it's going to be a lot of upset individuals trying to figure out what to do or where to go from here, because it's not in their favor. It's not working their benefit. Things aren't going the way they want them to be. I have to explain that to my parents sometime, and it's an interesting conversation, because they're like, oh, just wait till everything goes back to normal. I'm like, it's a new normal. It would never be the same normal that you once knew. You would never have the same, I'm not going to say never, but you won't be able to go get what you're looking for out of the car market. Not in a year, not in 18 months, probably not even in 2 years. You're possibly looking somewhere along the line of 4, 5, 10 years from now. And that's what a lot of people really don't want to hear. They don't want to hear you can't get what you want when you want to get it. But that's actually what's happening. You're not going to be able to get what you want when you want to get it, or how you like it, or what you used to. So as I talked to my friend, they both were telling me how it's kind of hard to keep inventory in the lot right now. There's no inventory to be had or bought to just even fill the lot with options. And the other aspect they facing is when they do get something on the lot, it doesn't have almost an instantaneous turnaround, but the turnarounds are way quicker than what it used to be before. So they can sell cars quicker than they can replenish the lot with them. They can sell cars quicker than they can buy them. So when you walk around or you visit a car lot or you drive past a car lot and you see they have no inventory, the question now becomes, how are they making money or moving vehicles? And it's honestly a scary situation. A lot of these guys say yes, they're making money with a car sale, but unless they, as they say, hit a home run with that car sale, they're going to struggle and starve for the rest of the month. Not because people aren't willing to buy the cars, even at the ridiculous markups right now. It's because they can't replace what they just sold. So that's why you find it hard to actually find, as people would say, affordable cars or cars in the price range that they're used to seeing. So with this type of effect in the industry right now, the only thing I can sit there and say is it's going to get better, but it's probably going to get a little bit worse before it does. We're starting to hear more about aluminum shortages. We're starting to hear more about cost shortages. We're starting to hear more about chip shortages. Tires are becoming harder to get, things of this nature, you know. My friend at the Ford store says the service department is doing good. That's what's actually keeping the doors open. But at the same point in time, a lot of the little electronic errors they're getting, or things that used to be like simple as like the touch screen is not working right, they can't get chips to fix the problem. So they're holding on to customer cars longer than normal, and people are complaining more. It's harder to fix cars, or electrical issues, or wiring issues, or harnesses and things of this nature. So my question to you is, if this is the challenges the dealerships are facing, what do you really think the auto industry and the auto manufacturers are facing? As I sit here and just give you a quick summary of the conversation I just had during my lunch break, I like to call it my lunch break, but the conversation I just had with some friends, or shared with some friends over a meal, is the auto industry right now is just, I'm not going to say bonkers for lack of a word, but it's just really interesting, and it's kind of all over the place. What are your thoughts on this? Do you feel like, do you really believe, or let me ask you this question. Do you believe that the information I'm being told is just a way for dealers to make people more scared or ambitious to pay for more for a vehicle? Do you really believe that it's going to get worse before it gets better? So tell me what your thoughts are. What do you really think about this whole used car thing? What do you think about the whole trends going on with the car market? Do you hope it's going to get better? I do. But for right now, the signs doesn't show that. So ICNV Drivers Edition, thank you for tuning in. Hit the like and subscribe. Share the video. Until the next one. Peace.